Hey fellas, hope you guys doing great. In today's video we will see, what if Naruto got exiled and became Bael Phenex in DxD, Part 2. Huge shout out to Alienware64. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe and like the video. So let's start the story. A few days had passed since Naruto and Rias fought in their engagement battle. Everything returned to normal, and even the Phoenix and his knight had been assisting to classes, much to their female classmates' joy. Thanks to the Gremry beauty, she had managed to give her fiancé the abandoned club of music. Not that they used it to play any instrument, but it had good space for their meetings. Issei, on the other hand, was now working for the Blonde King. He went out twice to get his first contract, but due to certain causes he wasn't able to achieve them. His clients, however, were satisfied with his work and wanted to make a contract with him in another occasion. There's no need to mention that Naruto was really surprised. Both him and Kurama had managed to get 30 contracts each of them. The majority consisted of pretty and lonely girls who wanted a date with a handsome guy. However, their souls wasn't enough to ask for sex. And both devils were grateful that didn't happen, since Naruto was now engaged and Kurama, well, let's say that he was just waiting for the right woman to lose his virginity. Now Naruto didn't stay with Rias alone since that night, due to that her peerage was always near her. Akino was the most teasing with the blonde, and she seemed to like him. Much more than that, perhaps, since she always liked when he blushed at her actions or touched her wrists. All in all, the Gremry lady was jealous of that. Currently, the crimson-haired girl was looking the sunset through her window. Her long hair blew slowly with the wind. She had a hand on her cheek. The memories of her past were filling her mind with nostalgia. Era, thinking in Naruto-kun already? Rias kept her sight in the landscape ahead of her, but she managed to answer. Hi, he has been in my mind for some time now, the Gremry assured, ignoring the sly giggle of her queen. His power really surprised me, and the fact that he used those copies of himself is unbelievable. Oh? So you didn't notice it? The question came almost immediately, the black-haired girl smirking in delight. The Gremry, however, turned her head slightly to the side. Her pretty blue-green eyes looked at Akino with confusion. What do you mean? Well, everyone noticed his lack of power, Akino explained, waving a hand in front of her face with disappointment. I can tell that he was holding back with you. I don't know why, but I felt some kind of weird magic coming from behind his back. Do you really ignored it? Her king widened her eyes with surprise. Really? She asked, turning completely to gaze at Akino. Her expression turned into one of realization and sadness. But why? Himejima sighed in resignation, her hand tapping her lips twice. Well, it's not that hard to find out why. Even if he doesn't show any sign of it, he cares for you deeply. I don't know if it's love yet, but are you saying that? Rias interrupted, her cheeks blushing furiously at what her queen said. Akino nodded with some sort of jealousy, her arms crossed under her wrists. I would have to ask him directly. Though I'll like you to keep an eye on that energy behind his back. Maybe that's the real source of his weakness. Just as she said that, Kaneko entered the room. Sorry to interrupt. Both girls gazed at the petite devil, the Gremry's lips curling into an excited smile. Kaneko! Please tell me that you made any progress in finding Naruto's house. Much to her dismay, Tuja shook her head slowly. No. And not even Kiba-san could follow his trace. Looks like Naruto-kun is very sneaky, Akino assured, giggling at the frustrated expression in Ria's face. It was like that since he made his presence known to her. She had sent all of her peerage's members every day to try to find his home, but with no avail. He was like a ghost, who disappeared after classes ended. Letting out a sigh of resignation, the female king turned her body and looked through the window. There was another option to meet him in private, and that will have worse consequences. However, it was her last option even if the entire underworld and the Koa Academy's students find out her engagement with Naruto. She will have to go out on a date with him, risking their secret engagement to be known by everybody. Hey! Are you okay? There, on the ground, was lying a young nun with a veil on her head. She seemed to be approximately around Issei's age, though he couldn't guess since her face was hidden from his sight. "Itai!" I stumbled again. She had a pretty voice, much like her feminine figure. Hayate helped her to stand up, his hand pulling her from the ground. "Oh, I'm sorry. Arigato gozaimasu." Immediately, the wind removed her veil. Issei gasped as he noticed how beautiful that girl was, with her long blonde hair and green eyes. Her hair flowed all the way down to her back, with split bang over her forehead and a single strand sticking out from the top, sloping backwards. All in all, she was a real beauty to Issei, who couldn't help but blush at her face. Asia blinked in confusion. Her green eyes noticed the aspect of the boy standing in front of her. However, her innocence made her think that he was ill. Sir? Are you feeling good? Your face is red." Issei suddenly broke out of his daze. "What? Oh, haha, sorry. I was just lost in thoughts." That wasn't a total lie. In fact, his mind was trying to give his heart an explanation of why he was feeling like that. Though, that excuse didn't answer her question, but she quickly forgot about it. "Traveling?" "Not at all. I was just assigned to this town's church," she explained calmly. Her voice managed to confuse Hayate again. "You must be from here. I'm Asia Argento. Pleased to meet you." She gave him a deep bow, her appearance of nun being highlighted with that action. Issei couldn't recognize it at first, but she was obviously not from Japan. Hi! My name's Issei Hayate!" he shouted, returning the same deep bow she gave to him. But in a few seconds, his back returned to its position. "I think I saw a church near here. Would you like me to take you there?" Asia's face immediately brightened. A happy smile adorned her face. "You would? Oh, thank you. All of this is thanks to God." Issei blushed once again, an excited grin appearing on his lips for an instant. However, when he saw the rosario hanging around her neck, he couldn't help but feel really uncomfortable. Naruto had explained to him many things in their second meeting, and one of them had been the effects of the light and holy objects. So, obviously, a devil had to escape from touching them or even entering churches. Soon, they began to walk in direction to the nearest church in the town. No words were spoken between each other, and even if Issei was feeling a bit affected by the pure energy of her rosario, he also didn't care. Her beauty was enough for him to endure any adversity, or so he thought. However, not even when Asia healed a boy's knee, Issei's opinion changed of her. Having a sacred gear like him was something that made him more enthusiasm about the fact of being her friend. It was true that he was a devil and she a nun, but it didn't matter if he only offered her his friendship, right? But eventually, they reached their destination. It was an old church, nothing abnormal, but the feeling he was having in that moment made his body shake with fear. "Yes. This is the place. Thanks to God." Asia let out a sigh of relief, which Issei thought as a sign that she was relieved that he had to leave. With a sad expression, he lowered his head and turned around. "Then I'll go this way." He pointed forward, not desiring to waste a second more. Surprisingly, the girl had taken the sleeve of his shirt to stop him from leaving. A bit taken aback, the boy turned his head to the side and noticed that she was smiling at him. "Wait please, I'd like to prepare you some tea." "Oh, but I've other things to do now," he said, cursing inside his mind when he saw that she seemed sad. Don't worry. We'll see each other again, Asia-san." That caused the effect he wanted on her. In a moment, her happiness returned. "Hi. I'm looking forward to it, Issei-san." In the end, even if he had to leave, even if she smiled at him, even if their friendship was forbidden, Hayate didn't give a fuck. He'll meet her again, no matter the cost. It was another day in Ko Academy. The sun was shining and the birds sang to make their joy known to the world. For Naruto and Kurama, that was a bad day. For them, it didn't matter if they were already used to the feeling of weakness during the day. With a weather like that, even the fangirls were nothing compared to the sun. Neither Naruto nor his knight bothered with wearing Koa's uniform anymore, and were now wearing their usual clothes. The Kyuubi's red kimono and Phoenix's black jacket gave them a wild look that was attracting all the attention at the frontal gates of the academy. The blonde sighed in sly frustration. His hands tried to cover his eyes from the daylight that was hitting him. Just as usual, Their fangirls were admiring them with whispers and mumbles. Kurama wasn't terribly affected by that, but he couldn't deny that it was bothering after a few times. Naruto-sama! The voice of a certain girl made him grit his teeth behind his lips. Unfortunately for the blonde, the girl who spoke was the president of his fan club named, stupidly, Lovers of the Most Amazing Man in the Earth. In other words, Latmamite. Please go out on a date with us. And she had almost the entire females from classes 1 and 2 behind her. Kurama held back a snort and just smirked at his king. His teasing side suddenly appeared. Well, looks like you've become really popular, eh? Kyubi almost laughed at the face of resignation that Naruto put on, but a new voice made his expression turn really grim. Kurama-sama, we'll like to present you a formal invitation to a date in group with us. That would include every one of us satisfying you in every way you desire. That group, despite sounding mature, was more pervert than Latmamite. To make things worse, its name was Sexual Fans of a Man with a Big Dick, spelled Sfomob. How they deduced that Kurama has a big penis, no one knew. And it was more shocking the fact that was composed of third-year girls. The tone of perversion didn't go unnoticed by the Phoenix, who just grinned and patted his knight's shoulder. Then, he turned to the group of girls with a smile. I'm sorry, but we aren't available for dating with you. However, instead of just depressing and leaving them alone, both fan clubs asked at the unison. Why not? That took both of them by surprise. Neither the blonde nor the red-headed teen knew how to answer their question. Although they always escaped victoriously, this time no one had an excuse. Because Naruto-kun is my boyfriend. Naruto almost gasped when he heard a rather feminine voice, whose tone belonged to Rias-chan. Rias Gremory, the most beautiful girl in the academy and heir of the Gremory's clan, was standing a few meters away from him. She wore, curiously, a casual outfit, which only highlighted her buxom figure and her natural beauty. It consisted in a short-sleeved pink shirt, with a black necklace hanging around her neck and a black mid-skirt. Also, she was wearing long black stockings and a pair of black shoes. The entire population of females surrounding both teens widened their eyes in shock. But what made them look really surprised was the fact that she walked to the blonde and circled Naruto's arms with her own. He blushed furiously, but didn't deny it. Soon, the whispers began again. Rias-onisama and Naruto-sama together? Kaya! That's so kawaii! No way! I wanted him to be my husband! Even the males stared at the blonde with jealous glares, though they did nothing to ruin the moment Rias's apparent happiness and love. And on the other hand, Kurama had a scowl occupying his expression. Bah, Naruto-sama has the support of Gremory-san to help him to avoid those stupid fangirls, he thought, gritting his teeth at the sound of the leader from his fan club clearing her throat. It's obvious the fact that Namikaze-san has a girlfriend now, but Kurama-sama don't, she assured, blushing madly at the pervert thoughts passing through her mind. The other girls also blushed, and they had a dreamy look on their faces. Then I assume that you're free of any dash. Suddenly, something interrupted her from finishing her speech. From nowhere, a girl with white and short hair appeared suddenly. She had no emotion adorning her face, and the only thing she did was to intertwine her hand with Kurama's own. Obviously, that caused a great commotion of every one of his fans, but he was the most surprised. Kaneko-san? What the fuck are you dash? His question stopped midway, however, when the girl's fist collided with his left hip. Kurama gasped in pain, his knees threatening with lose their strength. His eyes diverted slowly to the side. The vision of the girl, who apparently was hiding a smirk, made him growl. I don't like that vocabulary. Besides, you are not allowed to insult in front of your girlfriend. Her speech was the detonant of many gasps and screams of surprise. Kurama and Kaneko, together? Hey, I didn't know you and Kaneko-san were dating. Nice man. The voice came from Naruto, who was now grinning as Rias had her eyes closed in apparent delight. Shut up. It's not like dash. The Kyubi tried to deny it, but the girl once again hit him on the hip. With a mix of anger and pain, Kurama almost fell to the ground. Why yeah, Kaneko-chan is my beautiful girlfriend. There's no need to say that every girl started to cry in frustration. though nobody noticed the slight blush that adorned Tuju's cheeks. Rias-chan? Naruto suddenly asked as they both were sitting on a bench in the park. His fiancée had her arms still encircling his, and she had a dreamy and happy look on her cute face. Why did you suddenly took me on a date? I mean, it has been really fun and all, but I'm still confused. It only passed 2 hours since Kurama and Kaneko left on their date, much to Naruto's amusement. Apparently, Tuju wanted to know more about the Kyuubi's Yukai power and took him on a date to ask him about that. It was obvious that she did that with no other feelings involved, just her curiosity, since it was a strange opportunity to talk with a kitsune. However, despite Naruto's worries about his own date, that went perfectly with his fiancée laughing all the way. And it was a good coincidence the fact that he decided to wear casual clothes that particular day. He was happy, of course, and a warm feeling had his mind trapped in thoughts. The Gremriere opened her eyes slowly, her lips finding their way to the teen's ear. Silly, I don't need an excuse to date my fiancé. Besides, do you feel uncomfortable with my presence? Naruto closed his eyes in nervousness as he felt her hot breath hitting his nim. He felt a bit uncomfortable, but he really liked her. Maybe even more, but he didn't want to force her to do anything against her will. And no, it's not that. Rias-chan, have you spoken to Sir X about my return? Rias sighed in resignation, her face moving until she was very close from him. Not yet, but I'm planning to do it in a few days, she assured, smirking very slightly at the blush on Naruto's cheeks. The Gremri giggled softly, her arms circled his neck. But for now, would you accept my gift for our first date? He gulped sonorously, his mouth opening very slightly to answer her petition. He had doubts, since that would be their second kiss, and he didn't know if his abilities in kissing would be enough for her happiness. However, the sight of her eyes closed, and her lips approaching at him, made him blush. This will be. His thoughts were interrupted by the Gremri, who stopped just as their noses touched each other. Do you really want to know why I was so excited to fight you? She received a shaky nod from Naruto as the answer. Because, despite all the time that I spent away from you, I still love you, Naruto Phenex. The young man couldn't even get surprised by what his fiancée said, since her lips were finally against his own. Naruto widened his eyes in surprise, but the warm and soft feeling of Rias' lips eventually made him lean in the kiss. He moved his arms to hug her tightly against his, her large bust pressed lustfully against his chest. Their second kiss was getting more perfect with every second they spent there, and both of them wanted to broke it. Rias, however, was experiencing nothing more than pure love and adoration. This was the moment she had been waiting for so long, and the man she loved was with her. Life could be great sometimes, or so they said. But she eventually pulled away, receiving a moan of disappointment from the blonde man. What's wrong, Rias-chan? He whispered, searching her lips again. The Gremri avoided the contact and put her head on his shoulder. Naruto, would you care to explain why did you hold back against me? The question took him by surprise, his hands pulling her gently to look into her eyes. What are you talking about? Don't deny it, Akino noticed the strange magic coming from behind your back. Just as she said that, Naruto gasped in surprise. His eyes suddenly widened, and a repentine feeling of sadness allowed the previous joy to disappear. So, she noticed it, eh? There was a tone of disappointment on his tone, but she couldn't guess what was happening to him. Rias-chan, what Akino-san saw was a seal. I ordered Kurama to put it on my back to seal half of my power in it. Rias nodded in acknowledgement, however, there was a question inside her mind. That would explain many things, but why? Did you really want it to protect me? The Phoenix smiled quickly, his own hands cupping her soft cheeks lovely. That's the main reason, true. But the story behind this is just too sad for me. Please, don't force me to remember the death of Hinata. Those words escaped limply from his lips and a lonely tear fell from his left eye. He didn't really want to talk about it, nor that he desired to remember the tragic incident. But Rias was astonished and surprised. Hinata? But what happened? Immediately, she regretted asking him that. It was really obvious that he was fighting to hold back the horrible feeling of remember about that person, and Rias didn't push further. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun, I shouldn't have asked. The blonde shook his head in disagreement, his hands holding her hips with deep care. Please understand me. I don't want to lose you like I lost her. She was my only friend during my exile, and seeing her die was just too much pain for me," he explained, briefly remembering the times they spent together as friends. "I love you, Rias, and I swear I'll do anything to protect you." Rias covered her mouth in both surprise and sadness. The happiness of hearing those 3 words made her forget about everything she heard before. Slowly, her lips moved forward and met Naruto's own in a gentle and tender kiss. The boy quickly returned the gesture, his mind focusing on the amazing sensation of the Gremmery's lips against his. Soon, they were lost in their own world of happiness. And Naruto-sama! Unfortunately for them, someone had to come and ruin the moment. Slowly pulling away, both of them broke the kiss. A small trail of saliva connected their lips for a second, before their eyes locked in the other's stare. Surprisingly, there was a blush on Ria's cheeks, her own eyes shining with a new feeling that made Naruto's heart to melt in astonishment. After all that time, he finally noticed how beautiful she really was. Slowly, his eyes diverted to the side. The new sight of Kurama's desperate face made his body to tremble in expectation. What happened? Where's Kaneko? The QB had his eyes widened in terror as he spoke. Never again. I'll never date Kaneko Tuju again. That made both Rias and Naruto blink in confusion, but soon both were laughing at Kurama's poor attitude. The Gremmery looked slyly at her lover, his smile making her laugh to stop for a moment to gaze at him with awe. In the end, it was the best date of her life. Many events had transpired after Naruto's and Kurama's dates, and Issei was currently screaming at his king. It seemed that, during one of his contracts, a crazy stray exorcist called Freed Zen had killed the occupant of the house. Hayato eventually found out that Asia Argento was the man's assistant. Of course that, in her innocence, she didn't know that he was a bad man. However, after the man said that he was going to kill Issei, she began to cry and beg for Freed to let him live. Unfortunately, the man was too cruel to accept that and hit her cheek with anger. That obviously put Hayato furious, but his strength was too low to fight against an exorcist. Soon, his possibilities of winning were reduced to 0. Kurama and Naruto appeared in that moment, the night sword revealing a dark blue metal that shined with the poor light of the room. The king didn't attack, and allowed his servant to kill Freed with a single blow. However, the man wasn't stupid and escaped immediately. On the other hand, Asia had been forced to left with him, and Issei was now asking for permission to rescue her. They were reunited in Rias Club. Both peerages were there as Hayato talked. Naruto-senpai! Please! You've to let me go! He shouted, making his sacred gear to appear suddenly. The Phoenix sighed in resignation. His own curiosity of analyzing his gauntlet was replaced with the bad feeling that he was going to regret his future choice. Naruto looked at Rias, who had her hand intertwined with his own. Smiling, she kissed his cheek and nodded briefly. If you want, I can ask Kiba and Kaneko to go with him. Akino and Kurama will take care of the little group of fallen angels patrolling the northern entrance, and we can enter by the front to eliminate the remaining enemies. Issei nodded quickly, his mouth opening to thank the Gremmery for what she said. However, he couldn't because Naruto immediately retorted. Well, this goes against my will, but I give you permission to go with Kiba-san and Kaneko-san. Hayato almost jumped in gratitude, but he managed to thank him with a deep bow. Arigato gozaimasu. Kiba and Kaneko looked at each other and nodded, a little grin appearing on the blonde's face. Count with us. Naruto smiled quickly, his eyes taking notice of the pout in Akino's face. Why can't I go with Naruto-kun? That would be really interesting. Her sultry tone didn't go unnoticed by Rias, who just smirked and kissed the man's lips with a moan of pleasure. Issei looked at Akino and blushed, a perverted expression occupying his face. Kiba and Kaneko sighed at the unison, the girl looking at Kurama with the evil smile which sent shivers down the QB's spine. Himejima, however, didn't react like the Gremmery planned. Instead of getting angry, she just liked her lips at the sight of Rias challenging her. Enjoy it as much as you can, Bucho. Naruto-kun will be mine in the end, she thought, covering her expressions behind a smile. The Phoenix was surprised by the kiss at first, but when she pulled away he couldn't help but blush at her happy expression. However, that lasted only for a moment before his old self returned again. "Okay, listen up people! We're leaving in dash!" Suddenly, for the shock of everyone, Naruto disappeared from their sight. And where he was standing now there was just Rias blinking in confusion, her head searching everywhere. Hayate rubbed his eyes in disbelief before speaking. "What the?" Naruto slowly opened his tired eyes, his hand reaching his hair to scratch it. He had a minor headache, but apart from that he was fine. However, the previous memory of him in a meeting made him widen his eyes in surprise. The first vision he obtained through his pupils was the figure of a young girl sitting over him. She was pretty, her long black hair falling down until her hips and gray eyes along with a cute face highlighted her developing beauty. She wore a black gothic Lolita fashion, which was really weird for Naruto. Despite the first impression and their apparent position, there was nothing more than calm on her expression. The Phoenix didn't notice any sign of confusion, evilness, or anything on her face. She possessed an air of curiosity, but it seemed well covered under a mask of seriousness. The Phoenix blinked slowly for a minute, but the expression in the girl's face didn't change. May I ask, who are you? What am I doing here?" "My name is Ophis," she simply said, gazing at the teen with the same seriousness than before. "I've been also called Ouroboros, the Infinite Dragon." Naruto gasped at that revelation, his body trying to get free from his prison. Well, he wasn't tied or something like that, but having one of the most powerful creatures over him made him grow uncomfortable. "Seriously?" She nodded as she put her hands on his chest to support her little body. "Then why am I here?" "I brought you here through teleportation," Ophis assured, using a tone that made it look really normal to her. "I've been watching you for a long time, Naruto Phoenix, and I've to say that I was really disappointed when that Yukai sealed your true powers." He thought in getting shocked by what she said, but once again she was Ouroboros. He had heard many stories of her, and they said that Ophis can travel through the dimensional gap. In the end, it didn't surprise him if she knew his entire life. "What do you care about that? You know nothing about me." Those proved to be very wrong words, and he didn't even notice when Ophis grabbed his neck and squeezed it tightly. "Don't talk to me like that. I can end your life with a single finger if I wanted to," she said, making Naruto choke in pain at the strength applied to his neck. Ophis released it, and soon he was breathing quickly to recover his breath. "Anyway, you're here to learn the truth about your hidden heritage." Naruto coughed a few times before asking, "What are you talking about? Don't you ever wondered why the leader of the Bael clan forbid your mother to leave their mansion? Or why no man could approach to her?" Ophis asked, almost smiling when she noticed the confusion on the blonde's face. But before he could form a question, she continued. "Lord Bael was afraid of your mother, because she was the daughter of Great Red, the Apocalypse Dragon." The man immediately widened his eyes at what she said, his own mouth opening to ask what appeared suddenly inside his mind. "What? But how? It were lustful thoughts that make him had sex with your grandmother. She also participated on it, and he planted his seed inside her. Soon, after 9 months, Kushina Bael was born." She resumed most of the story, since Naruto was too confused to understand everything. It was okay, she had time to explain it with all details. "Your uncle found it after a few years when they were sparring in a friendly match, and the power that your mother used was far greater than any super devil of the underworld." Naruto gasped once again at what she explained, his eyes narrowing in confusion. If that is true, then why she didn't tell me?" "Maybe because she wanted to wait a little longer. She had never met her father in person, but Kushina wanted to talk to him," Ophis explained, approaching her face until her lips were kissing Naruto's nose. "I hate him for stealing my home. I want to destroy him, but I do not oath his offspring. I don't hate you, Naruto. In fact, I found you quite interesting." The blonde blushed at the contact of her soft lips pressing gently against his nose, but he didn't complain about it either. He was more worried about the newly revelations. So, that means that I are." "Hi," she answered, pulling half an inch away and grabbing his cheeks with her hands. "Your Great Red's grandchild." You have dragon blood running through your veins. Naruto's heart stopped beating for a moment. His cheeks blushed furiously with both surprise and embarrassment. Just after revealing the truth to him, Ophis did something that he wasn't expecting. Taking his momentary shock, she had approached her lips to him until both were sharing a soft kiss. Of course that his first reaction was to widen his eyes. Then, he tried to pull her away from him. However, his body didn't respond to him. In fact, it was like the dragon held him in place. She began to increase the passion of the gesture, cupping his cheeks with her bare hands. Ouroboros seemed to be completely calm about it, since her eyes were closed, and she didn't make any sound. Though no sign on her face showed that she was being affected emotionally by the gesture. In fact, if you looked closely, you could have noticed that she was doing something with her hands, though Naruto didn't realize it. On the other hand, when Naruto was beginning to feel desperate, something broke inside him. Suddenly, a sharp pain came from the point the seal was placed, and he closed his eyes in ache. Ophis' mouth prevented him from letting out a cry, but he couldn't help but try to focus in the embarrassment he was feeling to avoid thinking in the pain. However, the horrible feeling soon disappeared. Taking its place, a warm sensation invaded his body and an old power returned to him. What's going on? Did she, he thought, noticing that his old strength had completely returned to him. And despite what he felt at first, the calmness of his ancient energy soon flowed through him and relaxed his nerves. Soon, he was returning the kiss without even thinking in the consequences of doing that. But as soon as he began to forget about his surroundings, Ophis pulled back suddenly. A thin thread of saliva connecting their lips until she was a few meters away from his face. Naruto immediately regretted doing that, but in the girl's face there wasn't a single trace of regret, nervousness, embarrassment, or even a simple blush. She was serious like at the beginning, and her hand reached to clean her lips. How was that? Ophis asked, moving her hands until they were on his chest. Bibaka! Do you realize what you did? Naruto answered, turning his sight to a side to avoid her stoic expression. I'm in gag dash. Her face immediately reached his lips again, silencing him with superior command. Her tongue won a weak battle against his, and soon she was exploring his mouth victoriously. However, she broke the gesture after 5 seconds. Don't misinterpret things, Naruto Phenex, she said, noticing that he wasn't looking at her. Using her hands, she turned his head until the eyes locked again. That kiss didn't mean anything to me, and my only goal was to give you my blessing. Oh, and apart from that, I broke your seal. Naruto gritted his teeth. The thought of kissing a lowly made a bit of shame to appear inside his mind. What is that blessing of yours? I'm a devil. I can't receive the bless of someone. The dragon almost raised an eyebrow at his own words. No, this is different. This kiss was nothing more than a gift from my part. The blonde looked at her with anger and embarrassment, but he obviously didn't understand what she wanted to say. It's not that hard to comprehend. When I said that you had dragon blood, that didn't mean that you can unlock its powers by your own. That's why I gave you an opportunity to show me how powerful you can become with your dragon form. He snorted at that, showing the deep disbelief that he was feeling in that moment. Well, that's good and everything, but what about Kazan? Is she able to use Great Red's powers? He asked, blinking in confusion for a few moments. Ophis remained stoically for a minute. Her eyes didn't turn away from the grandchild of the Apocalypse Dragon. Hi! However, her dragon blood is more stronger than you, that's why she can control it perfectly, she explained, taking note of every change on his expression. Even though, that would be a perfect explanation to why you, unconsciously, killed your best friend in the war. That's an ability that some dragons has, called Juggernaut Drive, which allows the user to receive an unbelievable boost of his powers to win every battle. Though, even if you were stronger enough without it, your anger forced that energy to control your mind. In the end, you lost your sanity and almost died in consumption. Naruto almost gasped as the explanation hit his ears. So, Hinata's death forced it to stop controlling me? The blonde asked, letting his hair cover his eyes with sorrow. I can understand though. I was really mad when I saw my comrades dying one by one in the hands of Obito's forces. After saying that, Both went silent for a few minutes. The Phoenix was trapped in the grim memory of Hinata Hyuga losing her life on his shaky hands, and Ophis just kept her sight on him. However, it didn't pass much time before another doubt forced his brain to momentarily forget about her death. I thought that only Drake and Albion have that strange ability, but Great Red too. Ouroboros nodded almost immediately as the only answer. The Phoenix couldn't move his body, but his head was free and he turned it to the side again. I'll need time to process this. The girl raised her back a little. Her fair skin was now visible for Naruto to look at. However, he didn't possess the desire to do something like that. Time is something infinite to me, she assured, moving once again his face to meet hers. The Cow's Brigade won't go after you, but you must train your bloodline. How to unlock your true form is something that you'll need to ask your mother, since she learned it by herself. Ophis explained, nodding to him. Although you would disagree with this, I'll request your assistance, Naruto Phoenix. What do you mean? His eyes once again diverted from her face. He was still ashamed of being kissed so deeply by a young girl. She suddenly felt something similar to amusement, and couldn't help but gave him a little smile. I'm asking you to join the Cow's Brigade. Naruto opened his eyes as the sound of his alarm hit his numbed ears. It seemed like the sunlight was entering through his window, and barely illuminated his room. Despite that, it appeared that it wasn't so late in the morning. The first feeling his body received was something really soft and warm pressing against his left side. At first, he didn't feel the pair of arms hugging him tightly, but soon he almost jumped out of the bed as he noticed who was lying next to him. Rias was sleeping calmly in his bed, her naked body pressing against his own. And of course, her huge freests were touching his skin. He felt that his friend was waking up as his eyes took notice of her beautiful figure, and his expression turned desperate. Why, Rias-chan is in my bed. Oh man! Did we do something like, well, that, he thought, noticing that his left arm was on her lower back. More precisely, it was touching her soft and round ass. Immediately, his eyes widened at the uncomfortable situation. Well, it wasn't uncomfortable at all, but even if he liked it, he wasn't a pervert. And the fact that her body was pressed against his prevented him from moving away from her. For that purpose, he almost gasped when he noticed that she was stirring. Almost after a few seconds, her eyes finally opened. Sitting on the bed, her sight inspected the unknown room for a few moments, before landing finally on the teen resting next to her. Rias blinked 2 times in apparent confusion, but her mind finally forced her to react and to smile warmly at him. Oh hail, Naruto-kun, she whispered, yawning briefly. Meanwhile, the boy's pupils were locked onto her big tits. The long crimson hair fell in a seductive way and accented her freests, making them look more appeal. But due to that, he failed to notice that her lips were approaching until it was too late. Their lips touched each other, and Rias gave him a tender kiss. Naruto widened at the sudden contact, but soon he was returning the gesture. The kiss, as always, was something soft and lovely that shone the great love and adoration that she had for him. Apart from the fact that he also loved her, how could he resist a such beautiful woman? Rias eventually broke their union. Their lips remained connected for an instant, before pulling away gently. I've really missed you, Naruto-kun, the Gremory said, giving him a quick peck. He blushed slightly at her words, but he couldn't prevent Rias from hugging him tightly again. She put her head on his chest. A happy sigh of joy escaped from her lips as she closed her eyes with delight. Naruto was going to stroke her hair, but Rias stopped his movements with her next words. 2 days ago you disappeared from the club room without any warning. Where have you been? Naruto widened his eyes at what she said. His mind gave him the memories of everything that happened before he fell unconscious when talking to Ophis. Rias-chan, what happened to me? He asked, diverting the question. He was beginning to feel uneasy. The man had thought that it had been a simple dream, but now that she mentioned it, she suddenly raised her head until their eyes were locked. Moving her body closer to him, she pressed her big freests against his chest. That, of course, made him blush from the perverted thoughts he was having then. Thanks to Satan that I've my boxers covering it, he thought, noticing their compromising position. Naruto-kun. Her hand rested on his hot cheek, sending a warm shiver down his spine. Don't you remember what happened? Well, yeah, but I thought that my conversation with Ophis was just a simple dash. Ophis, Rias interrupted, making Naruto's mouth to close abruptly. Have you really talked with the infinite dragon? Ouroboros! Seeing that he would have to explain everything to her, his throat exhaled a deep sigh. Naruto told her about his short speech with Ophis, the revelation of his true heritage, and the blessing she gave to him. Of course that, when he finished, he seemed a bit scared of how she would react to the kiss he shared with the little girl. However, instead of screaming at him or getting angry, she just shrugged her shoulders and hugged him more tightly than before. Whoa, great Red, you said? That's amazing, and it would explain why Kushina-sama was always locked in that castle. She analyzed the entire situation quickly. Her admiration for her fiancé grew more and more with everything she learned about him. And did you enjoy it? I mean, the kiss? Naruto shivered noticeably before answering. What? No. Of course not. She was just a loli. Luckily for him, that seemed the only thing Rias needed to smile again. Well, that's good since I'm sure that you prefer my kisses rather than any powerful dragon, right? Noticing how quick the nod was, she couldn't help but giggle. But soon enough, her good mood wavered a bit. A lot of things happened in these days, Naruto-kun. First of all, Issei failed to rescue that little nun from Rainier. Poor Issei. I didn't meet her, but she must have been a good girl, Naruto assured, his expression suddenly turning sad. Rias smiled brightly and touched playfully his nose. Don't worry. She's fine, and currently living with him. The blonde once again widened his eyes and opened his mouth to ask for an explanation, but she answered before he could do so. I never said that Issei had lost the fight. In fact, thanks to Rainier's defeat, I could reincarnate her as my bishop. Naruto immediately grinned at her answer. His pride for Issei grew more with that short story. So, Haya to beat a fallen angel with his bare hands, huh? That's pretty impressive, but he will need more training. I can't let my peerage down. The girl couldn't help but blush at the determination in the blonde's eyes, her mind giving her another reason to provide him any support he could need. I'll help you and your peerage to become stronger. After all, you're my fiancé. Rias, he whispered, gratefully surprised of what she offered to him. Smiling warmly, he kissed her forehead. You've done a lot for me since I came here, and I don't know if I can do something to compensate you for your help. She suddenly sat up on the bed, her legs moving quickly to accommodate her body over his own. He was going to ask what she was planning to do, but the sudden contact between his covered sex and her own made him blush furiously. Gasping, he gazed over at her naked figure. Damn, she truly looked like a goddess. There's a way you can retribute me for my efforts. Naruto diverted his eyes from her naked body and tried to suppress the urge to take her right there. What do you mean? He asked, noticing that she was leaning closer to him. Stopping next to his ear, her hot breath hit his nim. You already know the answer, Naruto-kun. In a moment like that, any normal man would have succumbed to the temptation of having a true beauty on him. However, the Phoenix almost pat himself on the back for his efforts on resisting the urge. Rias, he started, moaning slightly as she bit lustfully his ear. Oh man, if this goes further I won't be able to dash. His thoughts were interrupted, however, by the sound of a masculine voice coming from next to the bed. What are you doing, Naruto-sama? The blonde looked immediately to the right side. His eyes took notice of the figure of the QB standing next to them. Blinking in confusion, his mind suddenly forced his body to pull Rias away. Kurama! Naruto shouted, falling from the bed due to a sudden movement. Kurama raised an eyebrow at the sight of his king blushing with embarrassment. His ears caught the sound of Rias mumbling something under her breath, and he couldn't stop the smirk to adorn his face. However, he kept his eyes on the young blonde. It's good to see that you're okay, but please, avoid mating with Gremry-san until you are married. Naruto's eyes widened at what he said, his feet forcing his body to stand up quickly. Hey, we weren't doing anything like that, he managed to say, before he paled at the feeling of Rias' body pressing against his back. Why do you have to lie? We're unofficially engaged, but this is natural between a couple. The QB almost laughed when he noticed how nervous his king was, but covered it behind a sly smirk. Well, I don't care about your activities with her. But as an advice, you should get dressed. I want you to tell me everything about Great Red and your true heritage. A single questino formed within his brain. How could he knew about it? However, Naruto never figured out. Oh no, don't tell me that he was spying us all this time. The scary thought appeared suddenly inside his mind, and he couldn't stop the incoming shiver that made him tremble. Many things had passed since his victory against Rainier, and he couldn't be more happier. Asia was living with him. Her gentle and beautiful smile was the joy of his days since he met her. His heart always pounded when he was near the blonde, and he couldn't stop the blush that covered his cheeks. However, although he really liked her, he didn't know if that was love. After what the fallen angel did to his heart, he didn't want to fall in love so quickly with another girl. Even if that woman was someone as sweet and pure as Asia Argento. Currently, he and his perverted friends, Motohama and Matsuda, were standing inside a locker from the girls' dressing room. The fact was that both friends had promised him a VIP seat to peep on the girls if he introduced them one of his female friends. Issei agreed with his partners and gave them Miltan's phone number. Poor idiots, he thought, almost laughing inside his mind at the image of the transvestite and her friends receiving them. Whoa! This is great! Issei whispered loudly, trying to memorize every size of bust that the girls had. Look at those apes! Motohama adjusted his glasses with a movement of his hands. See? We told ya! Matsuda agreed with him. Even if both of them were behind Issei, they didn't need to see. After all, Hayata had given them the opportunity to meet real and hot girls. This is the best place in the whole campus, to peep, haha! Issei and Motohama giggled pervertedly. The first cheeks dyed of a slight pink at the glorious sight of the naked bodies of the girls. However, the sudden vision of a certain young student made Hayata gasp with expectation. Keikaniko-chan! He whispered, calling the attention of his friends again. She was only on her bra and panties, and her hands moved to unclip the last piece of cloth that covered her fleece from Issei's eyes. Oh! She's so close. I can almost see them, he thought, narrowing his eyes to look better. Unfortunately for him, a scream coming from another girl forced Tuju to stop removing her brow. There, standing in the door, was Naruto Phenex along with his knight Kurama. Now, neither Issei nor his friends knew what was happening and they feared for their safety. However, the most shocked of the room were the other girls who tried to cover their body from both teenagers' sight. Naruto sighed and gave them a deep bow. Sorry if we're interrupting. We'll leave in a few seconds, I promise. His speech didn't go unnoticed by Kaneko, who narrowed her eyes at Kurama. Covering her body, she prepared her fist in case that the kitsune would dare to look at her naked body. She didn't care if Naruto did because he was engaged and his behavior showed many times his non-perverted intentions. Kurama and his king walked alongside the shocked girls, whose blushes grew redder as they passed next to them. Unlike Kaneko, most of the girls from that class were fangirls of Naruto, and that prevented them from getting angry at him, or at Kurama. However, in a state like that, none of them dared to flirt with him. Ladies, the Phenex said, gazing over quickly at two girls who were standing next to the locker and where Issei and his friends were. It's here. Kurama, could you? He couldn't ask further, however, since the Kyuubi had impacted his fist into the metallic door. His strength destroyed it, and soon they caught the sight of the perverted trio shaking in fear. What the hell are you doing, Issei? We've training to do. Issei opened his mouth to apologize, but the rough hand of the knight grabbed the collar of his shirt and pulled him out of the locker. Soon Naruto was smiling. If you excuse us, gentlemen, Kurama said, lowering his head slightly before walking through the dressing room dragging Issei with him. Kyuubi stopped silently beside Kaneko, who was still covering her body. She only needed a single hint of perverted thoughts from the knight, and she would kill him. Oh, Tuja-san, I almost forgot. Rias-san has ordered you to find us when you're done. Not surprisingly, the Kyuubi kept his eyes on the front door as he spoke, mindless of her apparent warnings towards him. And that gave him the opportunity to left with Issei, who was blushing and drooling at the sight of many beautiful girls half naked. As he left, the Phenex turned to the group of blushed girls, who were now totally ashamed and furious with the perverts. "Please, forgive our interruption. We've been forced to enter here against our will," Naruto explained, smiling in a way that asked for forgiveness. Luckily for him, his explanation convinced the group completely. "And no, you don't have to apologize, Naruto-sama. We understand," a certain girl reassured him, blushing as she covered her own body with her arms. "I appreciate your understanding, but I'm worried about them." Every female noticed that he was pointing towards the remaining perverts, and smirked deviously. "We'll take care of them," another shouted from behind, convincing the man from letting them in their hands. Nodding, he almost laughed as he left. However, he winced when he heard many yells, imagining the beating that both perverts were receiving. Turning to Kurama, who was still holding Issei by the crook of his shirt, Naruto smiled. "Let's go, we've work to do." "Okay, Issei, I want you to shoot it again. Can you do that for me?" Hayate stood gawked at the proximity of Akino on his left side. She had decided to help him, whereas Rias and Naruto worked together, as always. She was surprisingly jealous, but after the truth had been revealed to both peerages, she couldn't avoid that feeling. It was like that the heritage of the blonde phoenix had changed her point of view, and now Akino wasn't after him just to tease the couple. No, she wanted to taste his real power. The pervert blushed nervously, fixing a stare at her ample cleavage. But he soon shook his head to get rid of those thoughts, and tried to concentrate forward again. "Hi! Akino-senpai! Do your best, Issei-kun," the ex-nun said, running away to bring some refreshments for the group. And again, he couldn't avoid looking at her rear, feeling aroused by her looks. She was truly beautiful, gentle, kind, and he couldn't think in no other woman than her. Maybe, just maybe, he felt something deep for her. Just as Issei pointed his gauntlet to the landscape ahead of him, Himejima turned her head abruptly, looking at how Rias and Naruto were smiling at each other. It seemed that, judging the fact that a huge crater lied a few meters ahead of him, he had just used a bit of his strength. She pouted slightly, gazing over at the Drake's bearer to focus on his training again. It just wasn't fair. Even Kurama, Kaneko, and Kiba were having fun with the triple sparring. And however, Himejima was stuck there, with a boy whose perversion knew no limit. Well, Akino was going to have her prize eventually. It was okay, Rias can enjoy her fiancé for now. "This is unbelievable, Naruto-kun!" Rias shouted, smiling at the blonde. "Your power level is almost twice, no, thrice from the last time we fought." The phoenix grinned as he scratched the back of his head awkwardly. He was surprised as well. "It seems different, more pure, and less tainted." "What do you mean?" Naruto allowed the girl to approach even further, until her chest was pressing against his own. He blushed, obviously, but didn't complain. "In the past, when I tried to combine my chakra with the demonic energy, it didn't go as well as I expected. In fact, I think this is the first time that I could merge both energies." Rias seemed surprised for a moment, not to say impressed by his deduction, but she avoided those thoughts and hugged his neck tightly, making his stare to point right into her green-blue eyes. Why there's always something new to find out about you." The phoenix shrugged at the question, moving his arms until they were on her curvaceous hips. "Does it bothers you?" "Not at all," she answered, approaching her mouth to his. Just as both lips touched each other, she stopped. "Honestly, that's one of the things I love about you." Naruto felt a warm thrill lashing upon his belly as Rias kissed him, and soon he was returning the gesture. Suddenly, feeling surprisingly aroused by her proximity, he kissed her passionately, pushing his tongue inside her mouth. She showed no resistance, and allowed him to explore her oral cavity, delighted by the initiative he showed. "Ah, isn't this disgusting? Young love is just what it takes to make me feel sickly," a voice said suddenly, filled with hatred. The Gremriere quickly broke the kiss, feeling a chill running down her spine as she recognized the man beside them. "Oh no, not now!" Naruto, however, gazed first at his shocked fiancée, and then to the side, pointing his sight to a blonde devil. Even if it was the first time he saw him, the young devil immediately realized who he was. Razor Phenex? Chapter end. Tired of watching censored fanfics? Would you like to watch some very naughty, filled with the Lemons fanfics without any censorship? I'm happy to announce that I opened Patreon page for you guys, where you could watch Naruto/Deku 18+ stories without any censoring. Not only that, you can also see the NSFW images of characters of the fics on my Patreon, which I make by myself. So buy your preferred tier and join our community now. Link is in the description.